I've been working in the email space for about 18 years now and have pretty much done a little bit of everything. So what I wanted to do a couple years ago was just take this brain dump and put it all into printed format, took all my blog posts and white papers, and that's where we ended up with the book. While I was at Mass Transmit, we developed several proprietary email marketing platforms, and my company was just sold to Striata in April of this year, so I'm now working for them as a director of business development. And there's the book and the book website, b2b-emailmarketingbook.com. If you go there, you can sign up. I'm adding more and more to the website continuously, and more will continue to come out over the next couple months, so definitely sign up for the newsletters there, and hopefully I'll be able to share some additional knowledge on top of what you'll learn here today, hopefully. So with that, we'll go into email, and email is an interesting thing because it's been around for such a long time. The first email was sent back in 1971, so it's a technology that's been with us for over 4 decades now. It's considered old-fashioned by a lot of people. It's something that we're just really used to. It's not sexy, and a lot of people have labeled it dead, right? Everyone has said that it's going to be replaced by social media, it's going to be replaced by text messaging, it's going to be replaced by instant messaging. But even through all that, email has thrived. But back in 2009, the Wall Street Journal made a lot of waves by saying that email is no longer a big deal. It's dying, it's dead. And if you can read this, it says, email has had a good run as king of communications, but its reign is over. Around that same time, a lot of other media channels said, email is dead, 9 reasons email is dead from PC World. Here's another one, Facebook COO said email is dead. Here's the Wall Street Journal Bits blog saying email is dead. Here's Fast Company saying email is dead. And what I like about this example is that even though they're saying email is dead, if you look in the right-hand column, you can subscribe to their newsletter, all right? So the way I look at emails, it's kind of like that old Monty Python skit, right? Where they're saying, bring out your dead, but I'm not dead yet. That's email, right? So 204 million. Does anybody have any idea what this number represents? 204 million emails sent every minute, right? A lot of volume. Here's one that's more in the workspace. What's 28% represent? Anyone have any idea? That's actually a good, that's actually, no, think more about time. That's exactly it. 20% of the average worker's day is spent reading and answering emails. So if you think about that in a lot of positions, that can even be close to 40 to 50%. We're very immersed in email. 11,608. Any guesses there? This is the number of emails yes, well, over the course of a year, sent to the average worker each year. So you're getting a lot of volume. And why you're getting a lot of volume is because email works. And email is a fantastic channel. It has the highest revenue return on investment of any channel out there. The DMA and the Email Experience Council calculated that for every dollar you spend, you'll get $40.56 in return on investment back. So if you think about that, putting out $1, you're getting $40 back. That's good for businesses. And so when it really comes down to is that email provides the most direct line of communication with your audience. It does so quickly, it does so effectively, it's inexpensive, it drives awareness, it builds loyalty, it generates conversions, and to top it off, the entire thing is trackable. So really what it comes down to is smart marketers know that email equals winning. So what I'm going to do now is kind of dig into an email process with you and kind of share with you a lot of information that can be found in the book. So throughout this, I'll also include a couple tips and takeaways, and you'll see those kind of marked on the slides. But really what I'm going to do now is just kind of like highlight a lot of the material from the book and kind of bring you through what I think is how you should plan for and execute an email marketing campaign. So the place where you always want to start is you have to plan for success, and that means having a goal, right? It all starts with having a goal. Everything should be done towards achieving that goal. So what is the goal of my campaign? That's the question you want to ask yourself as you prepare your email marketing messages, because without a goal, you cannot success. So what is your goal? And just real quick, from anyone out there, what things are you trying to achieve with your email marketing campaigns? What are the goals of your campaigns? Click-throughs, okay. What else? Going to content download. And what's the ultimate goal for the content download? Is it to get a lead? Yes. Okay, good. Is it to make a conversion? Subscriptions, right? Increase the size of your database. So when I've talked to other marketers about this and what I've seen from the statistics, what the most common goals are and what you guys are both working towards ultimately are increase in revenue and sales, right? That's probably a no-brainer. That's why we're in business. Improving conversion rates. What we want to do is we want to take our existing database and get more out of it. We want to generate leads, right? So through content downloads, through webinars and that sort of thing. We want to get people to come in, attract the right audience. We want to also make things less expensive, like reducing our acquisition costs. You can raise your return on investment not just by increasing revenue, but also by lowering expenses, right? So you can reduce your acquisition costs. That's also positive for your business. And you want to increase retention. This is why we do newsletters, right? We're talking to people that probably have some familiarity with our brand. We want to keep them as customers, keep doing the things that we're already doing with them. But what you always want to do here is you always want to begin with the end in mind, right? Always have a goal for your campaign. And that goal is whatever defines success for your business is your goal. Okay, so think about what it is for your company you're trying to achieve, really where you want to start with your program. So in order to do that, what you're looking at doing is getting results that matter. And by saying getting results that matter, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that what we're achieving with our campaign is ultimately helping our business. In order to do that, we need to do several things. The first thing is we need to, and if you're using software to send your campaigns, it's likely you already have this in place. You can easily set this up. But if not, you can also do things like use other kinds of tools out there to do that. You want to be able to measure success. And by measuring success, I mean you need to be able to know the cost of things, what things go into your expenses, and what you get out of something. So this might also include understanding your average cost per order. You might need to talk to sales. You might need to talk to other groups to fully understand and be able to measure things so that you understand whether or not you're successful. One of the other things you need to be able to do is identify your points of failure and change them. So email is generally the first step in a process in a lot of marketing channels where you go from the email and then you want to have the email create an action. And when you create that action, usually it might be doing something on the web. It might be filling in a form for a subscription, going to a site to make a purchase. But you want to be able to track that entire process, identify where people are falling off that process, and then be able to fix that. So identifying your points of failure is really important. And then you want to be able to understand how this all affects your return on investment. You have to analyze results. Once you hit the send on your campaign, the campaign's not over. So you have to look at it from a return on investment standpoint and make sure you're getting the right. So one of the things that I always preach to my clients is try to establish and refine your benchmarks and then try to improve them for every campaign, right? You're not going to be successful in every campaign. You're going to have some dips and flows and ebbs, but what you want to do is see that trend continuously going upwards. So establish your benchmarks early, look at what you're doing, analyze your campaigns, look at it from a return on investment standpoint, and then try to improve those every time you send an email. One of the ways that you can do this is by knowing your audience, and I always find that we have a database, but it's rare that we know exactly who is in that database, right? And a lot of times the most important people in our database are our buyers, the people who are buying our products and services. And so I identify those usually as being the most important people that are out there, right? Because they're the ones who are generating your revenue. And in the business sense, in B2B, we're looking at really two different types of buyers. We look at people that are driven by motivated financially, and we look at people that are motivated by solutions. Financially driven buyers are those that are basically making a decision on price. Okay, and this happens a lot in the retail space, but also happens a lot in B2B. If it's a smaller level product, price might be the determining factor. If it's a solutions-focused buyer, price isn't as much of an importance as the solution is. And if you can identify those two types of buyers in your database, then you can talk to them differently, right? Because one of them is going to want coupons, one of them is going to want free trials, things like that. The other one's going to want, white papers and product sheets and stuff like that. So understanding who's in your database is really important. So who is your audience? Looking through your database, you're going to find you might have existing customers, you'll have prospects in there, you'll have leads. These are people that you can potentially groom into eventual customers. You'll have sometimes business colleagues in there, especially if you're a large organization. You might have your competition in there, you might have media. All these people could be in there. But while you're doing this, what you're trying to do is you're trying to establish a connection with the people that are in your database, understand who they are, and trying to form a relationship, right? Because email is all about the relationship, and we all know that successful brands have successful relationships, and email can be a big part of that. When B2B marketers were surveyed and asked what they thought their most important B2B marketing channel was, email came out on top by a pretty good margin over other channels like social media, PR, search. Not that the other channels are not important, but email is always towards the top of everybody's list of what they think can help their business and their marketing activities. So 68% rate email as good or excellent at generating return on investment, but only a small percentage of marketers allocate more than 25% of their budget to email. Now, part of this is probably because email is a little bit less expensive as a channel, but really what we're seeing is that I think email is undervalued by a lot of people in a lot of organizations, right? I think that if people would put more money towards email, more resources towards email, they'd probably see a bigger jump in their revenue that they're getting from their marketing than by putting in a lot of other channels and experimenting. Email drives revenue, and if you do it right, you can get a lot of good return from your email marketing campaigns. So let's take a look now at data. The data is really one of the most important things that you will have as a marketer, because your email marketing efforts are only going to be as good as your list. And this is really important, right? It's always going to be quality over quantity. And you want to think about that as a marketer, because a very small percentage of your database are going to be the ones who are going to be taking action on your message. So what you want to do is increase the quantity while increasing the quality and making sure that the quality is always there. Increasing your list size should be a top priority. So all of us who are in the B2B email marketing space should be doing everything we can to continue to grow our lists. And this is a big challenge for a lot of marketers. When they were surveyed, we were asking people about how big how quickly their lists are growing. And you'll see here that only 17% of people are saying their lists are growing rapidly, whereas half the people are saying that they're growing slowly, or they're basically neutral gain and loss. And the reason why this is happening is because up to a third of your database every year is going to become extinct or invalid. People change jobs, they stop checking their emails at certain addresses, they might switch their addresses, people change names, things like this. All those things will result in a net negative loss for your database if you're not constantly adding to it. So you always have to keep looking at where can I find additional contacts, where can I find valuable leads, and continuing to try to grow your database. And you want to do this by attracting the audience you desire. So when you're doing any kind of marketing out there, you want to try to put out the information that you think your audience will be attracted to, whether that's white papers, whether that's webinars, whether that's ebooks, whether that's any of those kind of types of content channels, and then you want to attract them in, get the opt-in. And for that opt-in, there's a couple things you can do to help that opt-in proposition. And there's really 4 things that I find are the most valuable when you're trying to collect information from people to grow your database. Number 1 is you want to provide value. And in the actual opt-in area, you want to say what the benefit of opting in is. And if you go to a website, sometimes that's confusing. You're not sure what you're signing up for. If you explicitly say what you're signing up for, it's likely you'll get the opt-in. You also want to disclose the frequency, how often you're going to send to somebody. Whether it's a monthly newsletter, a weekly recap, a daily coupon, whatever that might be, disclose that, because that will help people make a decision. You also want to give the subscriber complete control of the situation. And by doing that, you will allow them to manage their preferences, how often they send, how often they receive emails, manage their personal contact details, things like that. Always make them feel like they're in control. If they feel that you are in control, they will opt out. And you always want to ensure privacy, which is a big issue nowadays. Make sure that people understand that their data is secure. You're not going to do anything with it that's immoral or unethical, but make sure that that is clearly provided in your opt-in proposition. So just to take a look at an example, what I like about this one, this is from eMarketer, and it's pretty straightforward. It says there's 3 new articles each weekday. It tells you that you're going to get a bunch of charts. It shows you an example of the newsletter that you're going to get. There's a couple fields here for you to fill in. There's a link to the privacy policy down here. So pretty much everything that they've done is pretty much by the book. The only thing I don't like about this is that it has a pre-checked checkbox. And that's something I do not recommend. Allow the person to self-select into these additional options and make sure you're not doing that for them, because if they don't realize they're doing this and they start getting content, then they're likely to opt out. Okay? This is another example that I really like. Does anyone use Slack in here? Slack's pretty cool. It's kind of like, it's like the next generation of instant messaging and communication tool for businesses. But it is a business tool, right? And when you come to their website, they have a whole bunch of different options here. Like, this is just one of several pages, but they all have these video testimonials on them. And you can watch them to understand why one of their clients likes this platform. But the thing that's really kind of cool here is that when you're going to opt in, it says add your email address, but it also says company name. And this is one of those things too where they might not really need this information, right now, but it's making them self-qualify the people that are opting into their list, because you need to have a valid business. It's clearly stating that this is a business application, and by asking for company name, you start to understand that. The other thing I like is that it has a great call to action, sign up for free, so you're able to do that without any kind of major commitment. You can just get in, try it out, see if you like it. So where to collect data? This is something that every marketer, I think, can be doing better. We can always be collecting data in more places. And because it's hugely important to keep replacing and replenishing that database with quality leads, you want to try to collect data everywhere you can. There's a couple obvious places, websites and surveys and offline events, things like that, registrations for downloads, point of sale if you do any point of sale stuff. On the website, it's not just that right column or that one home page that you want to collect data on. Try to put those opt-in placements everywhere throughout your website. Have them in the header, have them in the footer, have them pop up over pages. Pop-ups can generate 200 to 400% increase in signups on your website. They're a little annoying, but you can control them a lot better now. You can actually have them just appear the first time someone comes to a website, things like that. If they opt in, you can actually have it not appear the next time they come back. So there's a lot of options there, but plaster them everywhere. You'll be surprised at how many more opt-ins you'll get. You can collect data on your social channels. In videos, you can add an annotation or add something to the comments or something, or the description below the video. Sweeps and promotions, your signatures, all your direct mail pieces. So, if you get Boingo to do a bunch of stuff for you, you can put it on there. QR codes, make sure everything's mobile friendly for people who are opting in, who are coming from QR codes or mobile apps or mobile texts. Put them on your blog. Now, a couple of these things might seem kind of weird for B2B. I think Facebook's one of them, right? We're always kind of figuring how can we work in opt-ins and things like this in the Facebook space. But I actually experienced this firsthand about a week ago, and I ended up liking it so much that I included it in the presentation. But I was going through my stream, and Marketo popped up. I don't know if you guys know Marketo or not, but they're a marketing automation platform, CRM system, and they have an email component and stuff too. But I don't know, I figured it was because I got a lot of friends who work in the space too or something like that, but they thought I might be interested in this definitive guide to engaging email marketing. And at the time, I hadn't liked them. But afterwards, I did go back and like them, and I did take these screenshots. So this pops up, and then I click through, and the next thing I go to is their Facebook page, where it has an opt-in form here. It tells me all the things that I need to do to get the guide. I click to download the guide, and it comes there. It gives me a link, and it tells me that if I get 5 friends, I get a free T-shirt, which my guesses are not probably giving away a lot of free T-shirts, but I did want the guide. So this all happened right in Facebook. So B2B focused, this is something that everybody can do without too much effort. These pages are not hard to create. It's basically just a form that you add into the page. So you're collecting it just like you would on your website. So think about all these kind of interesting places where you can target your audience, find the people you want, and track them and get them to opt in. And then always allow people to manage their own data through the preference centers. This is a good example from Grainger. If you guys didn't know Grainger, they're kind of like a B2B company that supplies products for manufacturing and things like that. Okay, so almost like a Staples of the manufacturing space. So one of the things that they do is, number one, they send great emails, and I think I have another example or two from them in the presentation. But their preference center, I always think, is just a great example because you have all the good fields up here for your email address and your contact information. But it's very clear going through this area what you're subscribed to. E-newsletter, yes. Promotions and offers, yes. Product and reviews and surveys, yes. I can see examples. If I want to unsubscribe, I just click the button right here. I can save my preferences. I can view my privacy policy. Very straightforward and easy to do. So that's a good example. Very nicely done, very visual. No matter what you do when it comes to dealing with your data is do not purchase an email list. And I always kind of have a hard time kind of figuring out where to fit this in, but I always want to include it because it's really important. I have never, ever seen a purchased list do really well. Most of the time, almost all the time, they lose money, and there's usually a lot of negative ramifications that come from doing that. So the reason why you don't want to do this is because, number one, you're going to risk your reputation, and you're going to be labeled a spammer. When people get emails from you with your name and your domain on them, and then they start clicking the, I don't know who this is a spam button, report spam, all that will go and ruin your sender reputation, and it will hurt your deliverability both in near term and long term. So there's stuff that will happen down the road too that has negative connotations from an initial delivery to a purchased email list. So your deliverability is going to suffer too. If people actually get the email and say this is spam, then all the other emails that you have sent to valid addresses may also be moved into that spam folder, okay? So even people who have legitimate addresses, that message will be moved out of their inbox into the spam folder, and they're probably never going to see it. And the last thing is that it's just not effective. I mean, how many people here have received an email from a business you don't know, offering you something that's not relevant, interrupting your day, and then having you take action on it? It never happens, right? And it's usually annoying, and your thought process is, now I never want to do business with this brand. So it just doesn't work, and that's why we don't recommend it. All right, so now the email itself. With email, I always find that it's not always thought about in the way that you approach email, but email is very much a staged kind of experience, right? You have stage one, which is your inbox, and you have to actually get into someone's inbox, they have to see who it's from, and then they have to open the email. And then once the email is opened, then you want them to do something with it. It's generally a click-through, right? You want to get them to click through to the website. So then stage three is actually the website and then getting them to convert. And the website's not always part of the email program, but in reality it kind of is. You have to kind of think about it as that third stage. So what I'm going to do here is kind of bring you through all three of the stages. We're going to start with stage one, which is the inbox. And the inbox is really comprised of only three things. So you have to nail these three things in order for your campaign to work, because it all starts right here. Everything that happens after this is a product of making sure that you get the open. So you have your from information, you have your subject line, and you have your pre-header. Does everybody know what the pre-header is? Yeah? Okay. So the pre-headers are now appearing in most types of email software, and basically the pre-header will take the first opening copy of your email and put it into this little area down here below the subject line. Okay? And your goal here is obviously to get the open. Now for your from name, you can do a couple different things, but really it comes down to just being a business name or a personal name. And at one point, business names were doing better than personal names were, and then personal names were doing better, and sometimes you can do a combination of both. But really, you got to test it, because you probably want to lead with your business name if someone doesn't know the person at your business. I mean, if you get an email from Richard Branson, you know you know who he is, right? But if you don't have that recognition, then you want to probably lead with your business name as a from name. You also want to think about your length. 23 characters is what displays in most mobile devices. So your from name should be shorter than that, or if it's going to be longer than that, then realize that only the first part of it's going to show up. And you always want to be consistent with both the from name and the from email, because people will whitelist you, they'll add you to their contact list, and if you change that, then you're back to square one, and you might have to work again to try to get the open. Now for the subject line, what you're really trying to do here is create some sort of interest in your email, because you want to get that open. So you do that by putting the main point first, because you have only a portion of the subject line is going to show for the most part, unless you actually keep it short. But you also want to create interest, and you want to create urgency. Some of the best subject lines will announce that there's a limited time offer, or that there's something special going on, and you want to really try to pique that curiosity to try to get people to open the email. Address their questions and concerns. By doing that, you'll likely get an open, because it has value. And one of the things to consider is to beware personalization. I think that over the last couple of years, the whole high first name thing has gone from being kind of cool to being kind of spammy. And you might want to test that. If you can use personalization for something that is not first name, by all means, definitely try that. Putting in a company name sometimes works. Putting in an event you've just attended into the subject line, those things trigger some response. But the whole personalization thing with first name now is sometimes a no-no, so be careful with that. For the pre-header, that little bit of text there at the top of the message, some of the things that work well are providing a call to action. By doing that, you're actually moving into the initial inbox what kind of action you want the person to take, and that can have a positive response sometimes. You want to continue to generate interest, and you want to summarize the email sometimes to let people know what's inside of it, because if they know that, then they're more likely to open it. And you want to support the subject line. So whatever the subject line is, don't re-mention it, but just do something that will help increase the value of both things as they work together. So here's an example of a pre-header that I like from Litmus. I don't know if you guys know Litmus, but they email testing software. They're wonderful, and they do really great email messages. You might want to sign up for their stuff just so you can see how cool they do stuff. But here's one where they have a good subject line, but they have this articles we love about things we love in an email about email, so meta. and it goes on from there. And in the email message, I don't know if this is coming through or not, but this is where that appears up there. So that's a good example of a pre-header of doing something that's relevant to the audience, interesting, and has some sort of entertainment value, and how it appears actually in the message. What not to do is to do these kind of things. This message contains images. If you don't see images, click here to view, advertise, and those are the things that you want to try to get out of the pre-header, and a lot of people have that in there, but it offers no value. It's likely to turn off your users or your recipients. This is from Multiview, and I love what they're doing. Like, they have a great newsletter, but every time I see it, I just like cringe, and so I feel bad including them as my what not to do example because the content's great, but in this case, they need to work on their pre-header. All right, so we have the inbox. Next thing we want to talk about is the email body. And the email body, your whole goal is to get to click. And you can take something that can be, like this is an email that we did for my client MetLife. And I'll be the first to admit that this is a pretty boring email, right? Not a whole lot going on visually, but they liked it. But the thing that kind of blew my mind was that this really worked. And it worked because there's only one thing you can do off this email is click that blue button. All we're trying to do here is trying to get people to go to a website. And that was all we had in this email, but the click-throughs on this were ridiculous, and it still kind of boggles my mind to this day that this did well, but it did, because there's one thing to do here. It states the benefits, you click through, and it worked, all right? So sometimes making it obvious is a good play. So how do you get to click? There's a couple things you can do. Number one is don't sell, but educate. Educating people always works well in an email. Being informative, giving them something that they can use. Solving a problem, always a good thing to do in an email. If people have a challenge, whether they know it exists or not, if you're helping them try to figure that out, you're always going to get, they're always going to be interested. Save, save, save. Save time, save money, save resources. Those things work every time in an email. If you can give something to someone that will save them time, make them more efficient, those things are always number one for people on the receiving end, and entertaining them is also something that they like. This is really hard to do in the B2B space, but some brands have managed to do it successfully. It's more popular in the retail space. If any of you do any B2C stuff, one example I always like, and I probably even should have included it even though it's kind of B2B focused, is Think Geek. I'm not sure if you guys get their emails or not, but if you get their emails, watch their call to actions. They're always something completely wacky and irrelevant, but it makes sense for their audience, and they're wonderful, and it's just always such a good example, but that's a brand that will show you how to entertain your audience and how to get a click. So again, subscribers respond positively to messages that inform and educate. Here's Grainger again, and this email is about ladders, right? Completely disinteresting topic, but probably relevant to their audience. But I actually got this in my inbox, and I'm sitting here, and I'm all of a sudden trying to look at like, okay, if I have to reach up 16 feet, I need a 12-foot ladder, and how much weight can I put on a ladder if I got to haul up a bag? Like, I don't need a ladder, but I started like analyzing this email, right? Shop now buttons at the bottom for all of them. So it's really laid out really well. Just a little bit of copy here at the top, but it makes you interested, and it got good click-through. So talking about the copy in an email, a couple things you can do there is talk to your customers, not at them. This is pretty standard with a lot of copywriting, but it's really important to understand who they are, not to make them feel petty or like uneducated. Like, just basically talk to them like you would talk to them in a conversation. Start with the benefit. Always introduce the reason why you want them to do something in your emails. Being helpful always works too. Lead the recipient towards the decision. And then make the message long enough but no longer. Shorter emails tend to work better. And when you design your copy, there's a lot of things to do there too, but just think about what you want to see in an email. Use headers, subheaders, break apart the copy. Don't use long blocks of copy. Use bullets and lists. It'll help attract the right areas of the email. Use bold italics, font size variations, use color and white space. But the number one thing is make it scannable. People don't read emails, they scan them. And if you cannot capture their interest right away, you will lose them completely. This email is from Twitter, B2B email, asking for feedback, taking a short survey. I like this one because number one, it's short and sweet. But if you kind of skim it, you're probably going to say feedback, redeem $100 in ads, let's go. That's the entire point of the message right there. You can do it really quickly just by looking it over. And if you look further and read a little bit more, you just get a little bit more information. But all they're really trying to do is to get you right there to let's go. So they want to get the click, and that's the important part of the stage 2, the email body. When it comes to length of emails, shorter emails work best. You can see the spike right here. that's 300 to 400 characters in an email, right? So the biggest jump in click-through rates are going to come from short emails. All types of messages will have some level of success, generally in this 4 to 6% range. Short emails have the highest amount of success. But if you're going to make an email go long, make it go really long, because you might get a little bit of this bump at the end when you make it 3,000 characters. I don't know why that exists, but it always shows up. So if you're going to be long-winded, just blow it out. Yeah.
Is that kind of just the body of the email?
Yes. Exactly, that was the body.
Sorry, Nat, Kevin, ask a question.
Yeah, feel free.
What's your take on images and emails? That's like a highly debated topic that we have, particularly when you think about viewing on mobile devices. I mean, what do you advise your clients? I saw the one you picked out, the Twitter one, had obviously an image in it.
Yeah, I would actually advise against that in that sort of way. My take is use images to enhance and not deliver. That's my phrase. Meaning that you want all the text to be there, because there's going to still be some email clients that don't display images. Now that's getting better, and over the last couple of years, especially with mobile devices, that's become less and less of an issue. But you're still going to get those X's in Outlook and stuff like that in Gmail for a couple people that don't have, they're going to have to hit that display images button, things like that. So make sure that the body content has enough there that if the images are off, you can still be successful with the message. But always think about the images as being something to enhance the copy in the message and not something to actually deliver the message. In that Twitter example, they actually had information on that image. If that image doesn't show up, then you're kind of out of luck there. You can get around that with some technical decisions too, because there's certain times that if you're sending someone to a Gmail address, you know that they have Gmail, so that you know what they can and can't do in the inbox. Gmail can display videos if it's a YouTube video, for example. But it also will not display images from someone that's not a safe sender or someone that's been pre-approved, right? So there's these kind of things you can get around with technical capabilities, but for the most part, just think of images as being something to enhance your message, not deliver it. All right, so we have the inbox, we have the body, and then the last thing we want to do is a website or a landing page, and on that we always want to drive users towards conversion. The whole point of the landing page generally is to get people to take that final action, complete that last step. Okay, I'm going to go back to MetLife here and show a very basic example. This is a prospecting email. In this, it's pretty straightforward. They want to get people to download or to access a toolkit, to receive a toolkit, so they're going to send them a toolkit. A little bit of copy, a little bit of benefits, very obvious link. Once they go from the link, the style of the email with the Snoopy and the cartoony kind of stuff carries through. There's only one thing on this landing page, and that is a form with a submit button. When you come here too, it was actually pretty cool because the cloud's animated and stuff like that, so it was kind of nice. But it was really obvious what they needed to do. Here was to fill out the form. There really was no other option. And then once they did that, we got the conversion, and we gave them a thank you page that was also in style. So the whole thing kind of felt seamless front to back, right? And it worked very well. Very basic kind of example, but that's what you want to do, is just try to make it a seamless experience, push them all the way through the process, and make it very obvious for them to complete the action you want them to complete. All right, so we're just talking mobile, and I've got a couple more numbers in here for you. 79% when it comes to mobile. Yep, 79% of smartphone owners use it to read email, and that's actually more than use it to make phone calls. 78% of people use their smartphones to make phone calls. So more people are reading email on their smart devices than are actually making phone calls. I found that really interesting. By environment now, mobile has taken the lead. I don't know if you guys realize this or not, but 48% of all emails are now opened on a mobile device. Am I pointing in the right place? 30% are webmail, 27% are desktop. A couple years ago, this was way down here, and these numbers were up here. About 2 or 3 years ago, that shift changed, and everybody went from desktop to mobile, and it's kind of stayed there pretty consistently for the last year or two. But the one thing that has changed is how many brands are now mobile friendly. I used to have a couple slides in a deck that basically said businesses suck at creating mobile emails, right? But I can't say it anymore now because more than half of them are doing it correctly. 56% are doing emails that are not desktop ready, but are actually responsive in design or mobile aware in design. And you can see how that's grown over the last couple months here, okay? From October 13 through to June 15. We've gone from 20% to 56% of people sending out mobile-friendly emails. So if you're not sending out mobile-friendly emails, you're in the bottom half of that now, and you probably need to correct that really quickly, and it's very easy to do because there's so many templates and platforms and systems now that will allow you to do that. It's pretty straightforward. And the reason why we want to make emails mobile-friendly is because 80% of recipients will delete an email that doesn't display correctly in their mobile inbox. People do not triage anymore. They do not save it for later. They will delete it if it does not display in a mobile inbox. So no matter what your content is, if people are not going to get to it because you're not mobile-friendly, it's just wasted effort. So make your emails mobile-friendly. And you do that by putting in less content, making things easy to click. You want to stack your content, no more column design, put stuff on top of each other. I'll show that here in a second. You want to remove or link to low priority content. If you have a bunch of stuff that you're sending via email, think about putting it on your website and linking to it there because it makes it searchable long term. Its content could be used for search marketing optimization, but get it out of the email, get it onto your website. So many of you may remember the old mass transmit newsletters, which used to be sent up until a couple months ago. But we made our emails responsive, and we created this kind of blocked approach where we had each section. And when we blew up each section, we had it very easy where you could click to read more or to share socially. So each of these were pretty clickable by a thumb. And this was called responsive design. And responsive design is when you create emails that will detect a reader's screen size and will adapt to their layout to optimize the viewing experience. You can actually create an email now that displays one way on desktop, another way on an iPad, another way on an iPhone, right, or a tablet or a smartphone, whatever. A lot of brands are doing this really well, and here's a couple quick examples. This is from our friends at Stein IAS in New York. We had Jordan come and speak a couple months ago. But I like this email because it's really, really basic and it's really easy to understand how they made this work. On the left is the desktop version. If you just draw a line right down the middle of this, this image actually looks like one image when it's on desktop. But it's actually two images split right down the middle, but you just can't tell that right now. But when this shrinks down and is displayed on a mobile device, you can see that the copy part goes up here, this goes down here, here's your copy that's in the left column, here's your copy that's in the right column, and it just works really well on a mobile device too. So no matter what you're displaying it on, it works nicely. Here's an email that we did for a client called Thumbtack. And you can see here that this is a different kind of responsive design example. On the desktop, you basically get these images that span the entire width of the inbox. You get a little bit of copy, you get some call to actions over the images, a little call to action button down here. When it goes to mobile, we change the size of the images to adapt to a mobile environment. Make them a little bit smaller, change the call to action a little bit here, and then make a bigger button at the bottom to make it even more touch friendly. Okay? So you can do a lot of things with mobile responsiveness just by adjusting certain things in the code of your email. A lot of the reason why we're doing all of this is because we're trying to get a message in front of our audience, a message that's relevant. And what we want to do is we want to deliver relevance to the inbox because relevance equals results, right? And you can achieve relevance really through two primary methods. One is segmentation, one's personalization. I think everybody knows what these mean, so I'll kind of skip over that real quick. But in email personalization, the reason why you want to do this is because by making emails more personalized, you're going to have a lot of improvements. You're going to improve your open rates by about 26%. You have the potential to improve your click-through rates by 14% and your conversion rates by 10%. If you're working with a large database, just simply going to personalization can dramatically increase the results of your campaign, right? So you want to try to look at the content that's in your database, who these subscribers are, understand what their needs are, put together an email that uses the personal data that you have on them, and if you do that, you're going to get better results. You can do this in a lot of different places in your email. You can do it in the subject line, you can do it in the body copy, you can do it through images. You can have a different image display for somebody based on whether they're male or female or in a certain geography or zip code, or whether they have a certain job role or job title, right? People don't think like that normally, but it's not too hard to do, right? You just match it up in your database and do an if-then statement in your email, and boom, it's there. You can control your design and layout. You can control content. All these things are options for you if you know the person you're talking to and can personalize the email based on the data that you have on them. When it comes to list segmentation, what you're doing is you're taking your big list of everybody and you're trying to chunk out little pieces of it, right? And you can potentially use segmentation and personalization together. But if you're looking at just trying to create relevant emails for certain segments in your database, think about the different things that you might have on these people. You might want to talk to them based on their market segment, by their behavior, whether or not they've clicked an email before in the past or not, their demographics, their psychographics, geographies, where they are in the sales cycle, VICs, very important customers or not. If they're your top customers, you might want to talk to them differently than someone who's not placed an order with your brand before. Their history and their records, job roles, all these kind of things, where you acquired the data, the source of the lead, all these are things that you can use to segment your lists. Now I talk about sales cycle stage, and just to make sure everybody is familiar with this, this is a typical sales cycle here. But this is really important because people who are here in this awareness stage are just becoming aware of your brand. You're just initiating a conversation with them. The relationship is new. You want to talk with them differently than someone who's about ready to make a decision, or especially someone who's already purchased, right? But if you're sending an email, batch and blast, kind of going to everybody, all these people are getting the same thing, but these are all different people at different stages in the cycle. And if you talk to them all the same way, it's not going to resonate well. So if you can use this again to divide up, to segment by, and talk to each people at different stages differently, you're going to have much better results. Got it? No problem. All right, and then one of the other things I want to share too is about frequency. And this is always kind of one of the things that I think is a little bit eye-opening, but I tell people that they're not emailing enough. Many brands are not emailing enough. And you can learn where that crossover point is by looking at your metrics. A lot of brands think that once a week is too much sometimes, but you can probably actually get away with more as long as you're delivering good content. But what you do is you look at the revenue you're generating from your email, you look at the unsubscribe rate or any other kind of negative metrics. You might want to look at open rate and click-through rates too. But where you start to see an upturn in your negative results is where basically you're emailing too much. So try to find that line, keep emailing more and more and more until you start to get some negative feedback, and then dial it back, and that's probably your optimal amount of delivery sends, okay? All right, let's go into testing a little bit. And the reason why I want to cover this is because this isn't happening enough. A lot of my clients think that once they have some content that it's good to go out, but a lot of times what you want to do is try a couple different variations of things to see what works best. Testing is your secret to success, and you always want to approach testing with a goal in mind, all right? And when you're testing things, you have a couple options. Number one, you can test your basic things like a subject line. You can do a very easy test with 2 subject lines. You can test different types of content in your message, test different layouts, test different images. You can test different calls to action. I think that's actually a big one. Time of delivery can be tested. All these things are options for you to run tests. When you run your tests, you can really do it in 2 different ways. The easiest and one that probably almost everybody is familiar with is just a straight up A/B test. It's also called a split test. You have one that's a control, you have one that's a variant. Put them both out there, see what the difference is, and to see whether or not your variation improves on your control. If it does, then implement that as a tactic. If not, then try another one. The other thing you can do is called multivariate testing. And multivariate testing is when you try to test several things at once. For this, you're probably going to need a piece of software to help you with that. All the big ESP tools will do this with you or for you. But if you think about it like this, I find that this visual is a great way to kind of approach multivariate testing. You might want to set up a couple different options for subject lines, try different images, try a couple different offers, a couple different buttons, and then somewhere in here is your golden, your most optimized variation of the email. So it might be subject line 1 and image 3 and offer 1 and button 4. But whatever it is, it'll help you determine that, and then you can use that knowledge to help you better your campaigns moving forward. If you have a big enough list, you can also try all of these, send them to a small segment each, and then figure out what works best and then use that to send to the rest of your list. So again, these things will help you increase everything across the board, including your conversions and ROI.
And Adam, you can set something like that in Eloqua with all of the tasks you're saying?
I don't know Eloqua intimately. My guess is that you can. How you would do that, good luck. But no, it's no. But you should be able to, absolutely. It doesn't have to be 4 and 4 either. It can be a grid of really any size. But what you want to test is how many options you think could help you improve your campaign. So identify several things that you're wondering about. What if I did this differently? And then test those, and then just make a list of those things, and you'll find out that there's probably only a handful of things that you think would have the most importance to be able to get better results. All right, and whatever you do, always think about the conversion, right? Increasing opens and clicks are great. They're an indicator, right? They're always something that you want to pay attention to, but your conversions are what matter, so always be working towards a conversion. And always understand what your return on investment is, just to make sure everybody knows the formula. This is your ROI formula. You take your gain from your investment, so you have to be able to calculate that. You subtract your cost of investment, divide it by your cost of investment, and that's your return on investment. Okay, so really you just need to know two things. What did I make from the campaign? How much did it cost me? And then you can figure out your ROI. Okay, but understanding those things is important. And when you try to figure out things like your cost of investment, you have to take everything into consideration, right? Your resources, your media budget, whatever that costs you, your ESP platform costs, whether or not you use stock photography, like all those things play into your costs, right? So understand all that, tally it up, and that's your cost. And your gain has to be a monetary figure, okay? Likes and Twitter followers, that's not a gain. Your gain is revenue, okay? So always put it in financial sense. So to improve your ROI, you need to know the value of your goals. You want to design your campaigns to be measurable. You want to test and analyze results. And you want to focus on decisions that improve your return on investment. So that kind of brings you through the entire email marketing process. A lot of people have asked me, well, emails, it's been around for 40 years. What are we doing? What are the new things that are coming out? And believe it or not, there are some things happening in the space which hold a lot of value to all of us as marketers. And I'm just going to pop a couple of those in right now because there's some of these things are happening as we speak. One of them is dynamic and real-time emails. You can do this right now by using several different platforms. And when you use dynamic real-time emails, you can include real-time information. You can include content that changes based on when the person opens the message or their location geographically where they open it. You can create very hyper-personalized emails. One company doing this is Movable Link. I like these guys a lot. Used them a couple times, and this is an example of a financial demo email. But here it shows real-time financial data that's pulled in when a person opens a message. You can include a personalized portfolio. You can include a local map. Here's links to your mobile, which will then, in the mobile version, be moved to the top because it's optimized for mobile, and they want you to download the app, so it goes up here, whereas the other information kind of gets moved down. Obviously, it can be mobile optimized, responsive design, but pulling in real-time information is something that you're going to see more and more and more of. They also do other cool things too, like countdown clocks in an email, stuff like that, how much time is left in a sale, those kind of things. It's all happening in real time. One of the other things I think is really cool, this is Litmus again, and they recently did an email that has a real-time Twitter feed in the body of the email. You can literally open up the email, sit here, and watch tweets come in about that particular hashtag. So they are monitoring the hashtag here. This is the blown up version of this. But right there within the inbox, you're seeing what people are tweeting about the email design conference. I thought that was pretty awesome. And they actually have the code for this on their website. You can go and do it right now. Anyway, and they have a great blog post on it too, because when they initially sent it, the ESP changed their code and made it not work. And so they quickly stopped it and then resent it again to everybody and said, hey, sorry about that. But it was like one of those kind of like cool things where they were being so forward thinking that you kind of gave them a pass on it, and then when it worked a second time, you're like, oh, it's even better, like they figured it out because it made them look like they were, and it happened like within an hour, so they fixed it really quickly. Video, as I mentioned, video is something that is appearing more and more in inboxes lately. I'm sure it will lead to great things for LEC Media, right? Because when their videos appear in the inbox, it's very engaging content. Even if you can't get the video to play in the inbox, which is still only going to work in a handful of clients, you can very much put a button, it looks like the start of a video, and even if you click from this and go to a website, that still works really, really well. Video will increase your click rate 20, 30, 40, 50% easily. Okay, think about including video in your email. People were asked, in the future, do you think emails will be fully personalized? And within 5 years, people are expecting that most emails that they receive will be one-to-one emails from the company to the person based on their personal history, personal preferences, all their data, whatever's in their file. And what we're looking at is strongly agree and somewhat agree here make up, 78% of people think that fully personalized emails will be happening in about 5 years' time. So people are expecting this. So as a marketer, you need to work towards that. What can you do to fully personalize an email? Make it based on the information you have on that, the subscriber. And I got two more here for you. This one is in email transactions. There's a company called Rebel Mail that's creating the ability to view products within the email space. You can kind of click and go here. When you click Shop Now, it does go to the web for you to actually do your payments and checkouts. But it is starting to happen. Expedia and I think some other ones too are looking at doing travel right from the email. So it's pretty cool stuff, but the inbox or the shopping cart is going to be coming to your inbox here real soon. And the last one I have is in email payments. This is my new company, Striata. This is what we do from a big picture standpoint. We help our clients with e-billing. So if you are a Piedmont Natural Gas customer, you might already be getting these right now because they're one of our clients regionally. But what we do is we send an email. It tells you that there's a PDF attachment. When you open it, enter in your zip code. When you open up the PDF attachment, you get this thing right here. And you've already set up your banking information, or if not the first time you do that, you just click a Pay Now button and your bill is paid. So instead of having to click through, go to a portal, log in, find where to pay stuff, it's like it's all happening right through the email right now. You don't have to visit a website anymore. So these things are coming to the inbox too. So just to recap everything, the main points here: plan for success, have a goal, start with a goal, know who your audience is, look at your database, try to understand who's in your database. Remember that it's always quality over quantity when it comes to data. Try to attract the audience you desire. When you send your messages, always try to be pushing towards that last conversion, right? Think open first, click second, conversion, right? Bring them through the 3 stages of the email. Make sure that you can get them all the way through. Optimize for mobile. If you're not doing that, you're going to lose half your audience right off the bat. And always deliver relevance and test, right? Test everything is your key to success. So again, if you do all that, you will find that email equals winning. Buy my book. Thank you. All right, any questions? Well, you still get it a lot, and I'm not sure that people are saying that so much anymore now as they're looking at what are other channels that have potential. As I mentioned, like every time a new channel would come out, people would always say that's the death of email, right? So social media was the big one, text messaging was the next one, and all that has had implications, but nothing has really, made a dent in it. And email's stronger and better than ever right now. People are using it more than ever. From a marketing standpoint, it's still achieving great results. So it's the workhorse, and it's it's not sexy, but it works. And that kind of thinking, in my opinion, has potentially a lot of negative effect for businesses. Because if you're always trying to bright, shiny new object thing that's out there, you're going to spend a lot of time and effort trying to figure that out, whereas it's not really something you can figure out yet, or it's not always going to lead to great results. Whereas if you just put that time and investment into doing more and doing better emails, you're probably going to see a much bigger uptick in what the results you're getting back. So, definitely explore those channels. Try Instagram, try Pinterest, try whatever else. But when it comes down to it, you're probably going to see the bulk of your marketing success is going to be email driven. And even those social channels are driven by email. I don't know anyone else anymore now, but I hardly ever, I probably go to Pinterest anymore now based on an email that I get rather than actually going to the site, right? Those kind of things. It's always just email based. Twitter too. All the promotions that Twitter does. I get a Twitter email every single day, it seems. So.
Yeah, so I just want to say I've read all of Adam's book, and what he didn't talk about today is this really cool stuff that, there's some great stuff in the book that you obviously couldn't do today, but I liked, there's a section where he's talking about actually what to do with the content of how to educate people who are already your buyers, like that loop thing that you showed.
Sales cycle.
There's really good depth in the book about that.
Yeah,
it's too much for today, but I just want to encourage everyone to get the book. It's really good.
It's funny you mentioned that because that was some of the last slides I deleted out of this. Even with that was about 50 minutes, which is a little bit north of what I wanted to do. I'm doing a 2-hour workshop on Monday, and so I basically have this deck doubled, and those slides are in that deck, and I love those slides so much because that's kind of like the more in-depth information I think people want if you're kind of past the whole beginning stages of email. But what I do is in the sales cycle, there's those 5 areas, awareness, decision, purchase, retention. When you go through those, customizing content for each part of the sales cycle can really lead to great results. And I go through that in depth, and I talk about the different types of content you can do for each part of the sales cycle. Because people early on need to be educated. People who are in the decision-making process, what you want to give them is stuff to help them reach that decision goal. A lot of times that's white papers, it's product sheets, it's shareable content that they can then use to get buy-off internally within their organization. So it's PowerPoint decks and things like that. Like give them all that so you can make the sale. Once you make the sale, you got to talk to them differently, right? And you got to try to upsell, and you got to try to support the products and services that they already own. So that's all in the book, and almost everything that I've shown you today is probably, it's this much of this much, and it's kind of rounded out there. And yeah, so this is really just kind of the top level stuff, but I tried to cover off on as much as I could. So, all right, I know it's getting past 1 o'clock here. I don't want to keep everybody too much later, but thank you all.